Good morning, everyone. Or afternoon. It's midday as we launch these things. But welcome to another episode of Amplify Your Brand. This is the ultimate live on building a powerful brand in today's digital age. Along with my fellow friend and branding expert, Samoa there, you can see him on the screen and hearing him in the background when we start talking about sharing our expertise and helping you take your brand to the next level. So whether you're an entrepreneur, small business owner, a marketing entrepreneur, or someone who's tinkering around with the personal brand at the moment, this is the ideal live stream packed with practical insights and strategies that will help you amplify your brand and make you stand out in that digital landscape. So please get ready, take some notes, take what we talk about today into action, because by the end of the live stream, we have a clear roadmap on building a brand that resonates with your target audience. So thanks again for joining us today. Let's find ways to amplify your brand. And Sim, the topic we've picked today is building a resilient and internal culture. So this is the unseen branding imperative for people. They take it for granted. It's something that we don't think about, but when you think of most of the successful brands that you can throw out there, you know that they've got some kind of good culture going on behind, or they're actually companies you feel like you would like to work for. It's something
absolutely.
And I guess branding is something that always is looked at as an external thing, but
Absolutely
clearly
correct.
we always touch on the it's internal as well, because if you've got this, it's not like a cult, but it's if you get people to believe in the direction of the company and the brand and where it's going, then you're going to get this collective mindset. And I guess we're going to touch on all these things throughout today, but it's just something that if you get this right, then you're going to attract likeness, you're going to attract certain people, you're going to have, and we're not talking about external customers, we're talking about the kind of people you partner with, you work with. We've done an example of this with the 3 Ps that we talked about in a live stream a couple of weeks ago. That, you do the right thing by yourself and your brand and you be true to it, you'll start attracting like-minded people and you may end up developing partnerships and your brand might take itself to another level. So,
that is the interesting part. And in today's session, I hope we are able to fully flesh it out. We always talk about brand, and the tendency, like you mentioned there, Chris, is to look at it as an exercise for the outside, for an external, a skin outward kind of thing, where brand is actually much more internal. A brand is a position occupied in people's perception. And now you just mentioned there the word cult. This is not meant to be a cult, but the interesting part is that when you look at the biggest brand in the world, we have to inevitably go through religion. Christian religion is in fact the biggest brand, and it doesn't dress always in the same way. It doesn't externally reflect the same exact things. However, it's an internal belief that unifies everybody under that brand. So today, the session is dedicated to identifying the things that we as brands can unify our culture under.
That's right. Yeah. So let's get into it. So one of the first slides we're going to talk about actually is why we do this. And so it's all part of doing falling under the umbrella of what we do with the P8 branding program, which we spent 20 years developing, actually over 20 years upgrading. The branding on identity framework, it encompasses 8 critical sections of the brand, which we call the 8 Ps. And it's an easy way for us to understand and implement the programs for you to help your business amplify your brand. And what we sort of want to touch on is that each week we choose one. And this week we have decided to go back into the people section, in the blue section of our P8 program, and talk about how this affects those people internally. So what we hope to achieve today is find ways to unlock the hidden potential of your business by understanding how the brand is more than just a logo or a tagline, and discover how it influences your very DNA of your company. We want you to learn how the importance of both brand image is often overlooked as an internal culture thing and how it aligns with these 2 essential elements to lead an unprecedented success. So, and the third one there is exploring practical strategies to implement with your own organisation, hands-on tips for immediate transformation. Now, Sim, understanding your brand is a pivotal in cultivating a strong business culture. It aligns the values, empowers employees to make consistent decisions, it fosters transparent communication, and it motivates the workforce. It also one thing that most people go, why would I invest in this? Well, it affects the bottom line. So if you have an aligned brand culture that attracts compatible talent, it contributes to a vibrant work environment. So we talk about happy wife, happy life. It's kind of like happy,
Perfect.
happy business. It equips the organization to adapt to a change, enhances customer relationships, and promotes long-term sustainability. So it ensures that solid foundation for growth and success. Now, I've said a lot there, and there's a lot to take on, and I guess that's why we're going to break down each slide and talk about each one of those little components in its own little bubble. Just before we get into it, though, like you've got your own personal experience with this, with a company you worked with a number of years ago, and
Yeah.
that we have touched on in other episodes, but each time we visit it, there's always a new way to look at it. But we're actually able to use it as an example because what you highlight in that process is the culture when you join that company.
Yes, very much so. So for everybody's reference, in my home country, Portugal, I had not worked for employers such as this global player up until that point in my life. I had worked for local businesses, some of them of different dimensions to others, and the overarching, I think, mindset or mentality is that in some way, the underlying tone is that we're a business, we're big, you're kind of lucky for us to take you on board. Whereas the first thing that came across when I stepped in as early as the interviewing experience with this global brand, I thought I was going to be told what to do at all times and submit to their magnificent size and power, and it was completely the opposite. They started addressing me as sir from the foot in the door moment to the moment that they walked me through the entire experience. There's many details in here, but the entire mindset challenge that I started feeling from the get-go was the first note of culture, was the first note of a brand works actually inwardly more than outwardly. What I came to learn throughout that entire day of a selection process, the interview process, was that they work very hard to select the people they bring into the office. And again, that was no mistake. I got flown from Portugal to Spain to stay at a hotel entirely paid by this company and brought into one full day of interviewing where I met with several people from 3 different departments, and there was always something that happened as far as technical assessment of my knowledge and something that happened on the cultural alignment side of things. And that was another very interesting observation. So they spend a lot of money. They actually invest in attracting world talent and see if there's a fit, because that affects the bottom line. Yeah. A happy employee will do and go beyond what a disgruntled 9-to-5, I'm just looking to get my paycheck and get out kind of employee does. So this is point number 1. Let's keep rolling.
Yeah, for sure. No. Again, you've got personal experience with this, so I thought I'd bring it together. So the first part to talk about, and we talk about this when we're talking about the purpose of your business and your brand in the first place, is understanding your values. But if you can get clear alignment of those values, you can understand your brand and its values helps ensure that the company's culture is in sync with those values. So the alignment provides a foundation for the employees to work cohesively and uphold shared principles, leading to that positive culture, which is just what you touched on then, is that by you knowing what they're trying to achieve and what their values are and their morals and where they're sort of going, you can align yours with those and go, I really believe that those things can change the world or change people's lives, enhance them, whatever the scenarios are. And if that's the case, then you're going to go into work feeling pretty good about what you're doing.
There's a funny side to what you've said there, because you can align your values. However, the most interesting observation that I had was how consistently I was asked the same same question throughout the 3 sets of different people that I spoke to that really jived and locked into this cultural alignment thing. They all asked me, what are your goals? They didn't ask me if I aligned with the companies. They tried to flesh mine out before they expressed their own, because through my consistency in replying to those goals, then there was definitely a fit, and that led to the next stage in the selection process.
There you go. Yeah. So it made choosing a staff member easier.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So great example. Yeah. So the second thing we want to talk about is this word consistency in decision making. So when employees have a clear understanding of the brand's mission and vision, they make decisions that consistently work with those principles. So this consistency in decision making fosters a culture of reliability, trust, employees knowing what to expect from each other. So again, like we've talked about this in other examples over other live streams we've talked about, where if you know this is where the line in the sand is, when a decision has to be made on working with someone, buying a product, using a product, maybe buying materials, whatever it is, you know, yes, no, like it's that simple. You're going to go black and white. If it starts becoming grey, you know that
crystal clear. Is it
Yeah.
is it a dispute of my own values? Is it in line with what I usually do? And if you have those clearly expressed and you exercise them on a regular basis, it is crystal clear. It becomes almost an immediate result of you having yours and seeing if it's a fit with somebody else's, and doesn't have to be attached with judgment of good or bad. It's just alignment. That's all.
But another thing we're talking about here is building the culture of a brand. But specifically, if you're a leader and you're busy being entrepreneurial and doing your thing and going off, and you haven't put these things in place, and you start hiring people or you start trusting people to make decisions before you, when you're not around, because you're busy off being the entrepreneur, and you can't make all those decisions. If the staff members got those moral compasses or those values in place, they can make those decisions for you, knowing that you're not going to come down heavy on them and change the whole reaction to what happens, because you've got those in place. It just makes life easy.
That's exactly it. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So the third thing we want to talk about is employee engagement and motivation. So now that you've got them making good decisions, we want them to align with the brand culture that empowers them to give a sense of purpose and a strong connection to those company goals. We want them to engage and motivated and more likely to contribute a positive and vibrant work culture. So what we're really talking about here is if you're making someone feel good about themselves and they're feeling good about the work they're doing, and you've given them enough growth opportunity, they're going to do amazing things for you. So how you do this, how you nurture that, is something that you have to explore. I know you could go through history and you'll see dictators have done an amazing job with just telling people, like, my way is the highway, right? And there's a gun, we're talking about guns to heads, right? So it's a bit of a different motivator. What we're talking about here is more about free thinking, more opportunity to know that your decisions are good decisions. This is a good place, because as humans we evolve, we learn, we educate, we pass on information, and that information gets to the next person who then takes that information and maybe does more with it. So it's really important to get it right.
What you just mentioned is the juxtaposition between 2 very distinct ways of leading, and I'm going to use the leading word very loosely. One side is the dictator by decree. The other side is culture and leadership by motivation and engagement, which is very different. And this is what global companies have realized they have to tap into, because they cannot simply dictate under that rulership, because the culture doesn't last. It actually costs the business more. The retention is not there, and there's a lot more turnaround, which means much more less space for bottom line increase and constant onboarding, constant the constant rotation of employees. It's a hard thing. Sound? I think you've disconnected your sound there. Oh, it's me. I muted you. Sorry. Back on, I can hear you. No? Yes, I can. I can hear you again. Sorry. That was funny.
What's ironic about that conversation or what you just
You
done?
will listen to what I say.
I was talking about control. I said the illusion of control. You think you have control. Well done on illustrating my point.
Very synchronistic. I'll be right back. I'm going to do some inner work.
No, I was watching a thing on illusions on YouTube last night, and one of the illusions it talked about, because I went through visuals and all those kind of things, but one it talked about was the word of control. And what it found was that people who want the most control are generally the lowest end worker. They're the ones that are risk aversive, they don't want things to change, and they want that control, which is not how you think about when you think about control. It was the ones that were a bit more risk aversive, that were more successful, higher paid, were actually the leaders of the business. So it's an interesting thing to understand that you need to give a bit of freedom.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
All right. So, yeah. Based on everything we just talked about then, this improves communication. So a well-defined brand culture encourages transparent and open communication amongst the employees and the leadership. So that effect is a cornerstone for good business culture as it builds trust and promotes collaboration. I don't know about you, but I've worked at different companies in my earlier days where when the boss was like down on the ground working with you, it always felt like he understood us and we wanted to work for him. The bosses that sat in the ivory tower and we never saw them, it always just felt like there was hiding something. There was something that wasn't quite right. They weren't telling you the full story. It just sort of, and it bred a different kind of culture within the group. And we're not saying like everyone has to be tree hugging hippies and loving and there can be still conflict. You can still have a robust argument and conversation, but ultimately what we're saying is that it comes back to those values, and at some point those values get decided on, and you know that that's the direction you've got to take. It's just sort of, there's different ways to approach it. You've just got to know that it can't go over that line in the sand, and you can go forward with how you want to do it. But
that line in the sand.
Go.
No, sorry. The line in the sand that you're talking about there, I identify as respect, and I observe it as being the element in these environments where I've been fortunate to be a part of. And what you just mentioned there, the robust discussion is also an excellent term to describe difference of opinions and views of point. It gets to, especially in marketing, this happened very often, that different people within the marketing departments had different positions, from creatives or even from marketing in retention or acquisition. The point being that everybody needed to be able to sit down and have a civilized discussion, usually backed by data or experience or trial, because we were also doing a lot of A/B testing, ABC testing, and that was also possible to prove which way would be the best to move forward, not making somebody right and somebody wrong, but just deciding for the best way for the business to keep thriving.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic example. So, so obviously improved communication is really important to building the culture. Now, obviously, with everything we've just talked about, the one thing I love about this, and I touched on it in the opening comments we made, which is it attracts like-minded talent. So when a company's brand and culture are in harmony, it attracts talent that shares the company's values and beliefs, meaning you're hiring individuals who resonate with your brand culture, which overall enhances the environment and the work that you do. So I couldn't vouch for this one any stronger than when your company knows who it is and it's got that out there that people know what the brand's all about, you're going to attract more people to you. Now, I want to highlight here, this doesn't mean that you, even if you're an accounting firm, that you hire just accountants. It may mean that because you've got a certain type of culture, and this has been shown over all sorts of businesses, that you sometimes may attract a scientist, or you might attract someone who has a background in, say, something that's mathematical, but it's not accounting. And like these things open your mind to different ways of doing things, but still in line with the values of what you're doing. So it's just understanding that when we say like-minded people, it doesn't mean that you're getting clones of yourself.
Yeah,
It's just,
absolutely. Yeah.
It's you're still attracting different people. It's just that when it comes to those values, that line in the sand I keep referring to, we all agree on it. That's where the line is, and that's where we stay, online or on focus with, and moving forward in that same pathway. So, yeah.
The bottom line being that talent attracts the talent. A players know A players when they see each other. That's as simple as that. And when somebody comes in for a visit, and again, using my specific experience, is that when somebody is put in an environment on a trial period, let's say 3 months, and they look around and they identify other talent at world class level, they're very likely to be and stay to choose to stay in that environment. That was the case with this company that I was with. I was blown away how I went from working in local shops in the south of Portugal to working alongside literally people from Google, Adidas, Nike, TripAdvisor, like all of these companies you hear about. All of a sudden, I'm sitting in the same room with them, and I was like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted to be a part of.
Yeah. And what did it do to you personally? Like, did it deflate you, or did you get you to lift?
In my case, it put the onus on having to perform. And luckily, it did. It did. I created some very, very interesting records for that company in the marketing department, being best performing creative for 5 years straight. It just leveled up. And of course, with big stakes, sometimes big losses also occur. I also saw some cases of people that needed to go either by culture or by results, but the culture definitely attracted the talent that you wouldn't be able to pull from around the corner, because you're now becoming this entity that people talk about, even among the working lines. I just kept telling people, it's incredible to see this amount of talent. And I kept emailing people back in Portugal, send me your CV so I can put you through HR and maybe you get selected for an interview process. And the company's brand and culture just attracted that talent ongoing. And it's still going today.
Fantastic. Yeah. Good examples of attracting like-mindedness. Number 6 on the list that we've got today is enhancing customer relationships. So I know this might sound like an external one, but you've got a strong brand culture that often extends to the way the employees interact with those customers. So yes, you're trying to attract those customers, but the way that you're now telling your team how to act in front of these clients or with them is the employees know how to embody the brand culture. They can provide superior customer experiences and strengthen the company's reputation. So, like, if you know that there's a certain way you need to treat a client, then you'll treat them that way, which again comes back to what I was talking about earlier. The entrepreneur's off doing what the entrepreneur's doing, or the CEO is doing their thing. But if they haven't made these values and brand, the culture good, then the employees are maybe just going to pick up the phone, and if they're having a bad day, they'll just talk about how bad their day is. But if you've made it clear to them that, like, they have to be smiling, they always have to come across as, enjoying themselves and enthusiastic, they will be enthusiastic. Because the moment they're not, then hopefully you've got some protocols in place to, maybe not slap them on the wrist, but let them know that that wasn't the appropriate way to go about that particular customer interaction.
Very interesting.
Learn from it. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, interrupted again.
You're right.
The protocols in place is exactly what happens, both for the person to rail him or herself back into a good place of being able to interact. And in case of emergency, if something happens, those protocols help the customer.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. So if there's one I actually personally love about this, right, is adaptability and resilience. So understanding your brand's core principles can help foster culture that adapts to change and overcomes challenges. So a resilient culture can be more effective when you're weathering setbacks and continuing to thrive. So what I love about this is that, if you can build good culture, generally if you have a setback, what is the team will kind of gather together and either problem solve or try to work it out collectively how to overcome it, rather than being on your own and just I'll let the entrepreneur or the CEO solve it. It's like the team will come up, rise to the surface, and you'll find that, and I've seen this many times. I'm sure all of us experienced in life as well, when we thought we were on our own and we couldn't do anything, and you just happen to reach out to a friend or somebody, a trusted advisor or something like that, and you've got the feedback, and then they've just gone, oh, you should talk to Sally, Harry, and I think Bob might be able to help as well. They've always got someone else that you could maybe talk to, and you find that then all of a sudden the problem isn't as big as it was, and you can overcome it. And these are the things that if you've got good culture in your business, you'll find that they will come together and try and solve the problem collectively, and it makes for a better business.
Correct, because that's what talent does. Talent is able to support other talent in that way as well. Not everybody is going to be on their A game for years on end. And when somebody falters along the way, there is a team around, there is a system, there's a protocol to break the fall and nurture it back to high performance.
That's right. Yeah. So the last point we want to raise about culture and business is that it actually helps give long-term business sustainability. So this integration of brand culture contributes to long-term sustainability by having positive and aligned culture that helps companies not only survive, but thrive by establishing a stable foundation for growth and success. So by having good culture, feeling good, loving coming into the work, knowing why you're doing what you're doing and why it's helping others and these kind of things, means that you are consistently coming in and looking to improve that business, the relationships with the customers. All these things lead to a growing business and a sustainable business, rather than having to keep going back to the well every day and trying to work out what the hell are we going to do today and what's going to happen. Like, it's exhausting, but knowing is better than not. And I'm, you can get into all sorts of psychology around the not knowing part of it, but it is exhausting because you spend a lot of energy coming up with scenarios that don't matter, shouldn't matter, whatever the scenario is. But if you have a knowing understanding of why you do what you do, you kind of just, it happens. It just feels right. It just smoothly goes about its day. Or like I said earlier, at least if there is a challenge, you know how to overcome it or be more resilient with it because of the knowing part of what you do.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
So having to reinvent the wheel every day is much more exhausting than building on the wheel that is still rotating and then coupling on the rest of the coach on top of it and keep building the entire machine so it becomes a train at some point.
That's right. Yeah. So look, I thought we've done a fair bit around what we've talked about today, and let's look at some examples of this. And we've got some examples on the screen here with Wells Fargo, Enron, Uber, Theranos, and Volkswagen. We may not get through all of these, but we're just going to talk to some of them. And we are going to start with Enron as the example because it was a brand that it was heavily focused on innovation and financial success and ambition, which all sound great on paper, but when you find out internally they were doing this in an aggressive way, where the pursuit of profit and disregard for ethical standards and a toxic in competition internally led to one of the most significant corporate scandals in history. Because what generally happened was that financial manipulation ultimately led to the bankruptcy and tarnished that reputation. So again, by having bad culture led to the destruction of something that was actually heading in the right direction. It was one of the biggest companies in the world at one point, and it clearly went under. Wells Fargo, even though we're not based in America ourselves, we are well aware of this brand, but it had a great culture of cross-selling and pushing employees to meet aggressive sales targets, which again sounds good on paper, but when you look behind, this culture eventually led to unethical behavior, included creation of millions of unauthorized bank accounts and credit card accounts, which ultimately damaged the bank's reputation and severely damaged it to the point where it had legal consequences because of that. So, again, you may be thinking you're on the right track with something, but if it ultimately leads to costing you money. So think about what your values and morals are and what the line is, because once you start crossing it, these examples start to happen. Now, Uber's surviving at the moment and it's doing its thing, but unfortunately what we've found from their growth and their disruptiveness is that behind the scenes, that disruptiveness has led to harassment, lack of accountability, and some questionable practices that we've heard about, which has led to the misalignment of a series of scandals, public relations challenges that have hurt the company's image and contributed to departures of its CEO and founders, actually. I've watched this documentary on Theranos.
I did too. Very interesting. Yeah.
This is a great example of what we're talking about, right? So the culture of secrecy and deception of its product development, along with its leaders' disregard for transparency, because they had such a great cause, like ultimately what they were trying to achieve in the healthcare technology startup was, it was revolutionary, and it was something that people wanted to buy into. And you could even see it in the documentaries and the interviews with the staff, is that when the product was believed it was working, the culture in that company was amazing, except for when you couldn't talk about it. And the reason you couldn't talk about it is because it actually didn't work. And so this ultimately resulted in significant legal issues and a really dramatic downfall of it. Now, whether you love Volkswagen or not, it doesn't really matter in this conversation, because what we're talking about is that they had launched a product called Clean Diesel, and they branded it as something that you would love to have in your car, and it's great for the environment. But the problem with this was that the internal culture encouraged the engineers to develop the software that manipulated the emission of the test results, leading to the famous Dieselgate scandal that was really misaligned with the damage to the brand and reputation, led to obviously the legal and the financial repercussions. So these simple examples that I've given on the screen show you that in these cases, the alignment of the brand culture with the ethical standards, the transparency, public perception, had detrimental effects on those companies involved. So these examples serve as a reminder of the critical importance of maintaining a strong and ethical alignment with the brand and its culture, which is what I touched on as basically the line in the sand. So if you don't have this in place, what it leads to is your teams and your staff members doing what they've done. Now, again, this list could be quite extensive, and you could argue about these ones, but there's some great examples on that screen. But I don't think I actually need to go into each one individually, but because, Apple, maybe the internal culture is starting to wane a little bit. I think we've heard enough stories about the internal culture, but what is clear about the brand is what they're trying to achieve and what they consistently achieve as a company in innovation, and how that innovation is perceived and received by us as the general public. Google, again, they had the don't be evil as an example, and I've just realized we should be on the screen. There we are.
And I think there's a couple of banners as like you can see.
Oh, there is a few banners on these. I just wasn't sure whether you want to go through them. So, so this led to, obviously, what they do now is they deliver groundbreaking products and services based on the Google that they do. But they have lost a bit of the don't do evil, because that's what they do. But what I do love about Google, and that's what attracts some talent to Google, is that they have this 20% of their time is allowed to be used for in their own
personal projects,
which has led to some amazing innovations over the years.
Absolutely.
Now,
yes.
Not every company can do this, and that's probably the advantage of Google. But the fact is that they can do it, they have done it, and what it's led to is some of the, even in AI, where we are right now, some of those things would never have happened if they didn't have this kind of project going on. And trying to think, product. Have you got one that
a product in Google? You're thinking? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. I was trying to think of one of the products, but I can't think off the top of my head what it is. But anyway, we'll. I think the one to touch on to finish on is the Patagonia one, because we have talked about this in the past. Because it revolves around the environmental sustainability and ethical business practices for the outdoor adventure. This one clearly attracts the right staff members and the right people to its company, because it's been around now for almost 50 years, and that has built that culture around what its brand does, leading to a strong commitment from these values that attracts the customers who share their principles, but also the internal team members that they attract, which has ultimately contributed to the company's financial success. They've had some amazing success over the years with that. So, you want to touch on anything on these ones?
Just gonna drop the footer idea. Good branding internally is good business. So, and this is why the global players are doing it, because they've spent enough in research and they've lost enough in closed doors to realize that a global company, and this applies at different levels, but internal culture is the sustainability of the model. If you can't rely on your people, if you don't have good staff, it's going to be very difficult to keep the business going, because there's only one head in the entire body, and if the limbs keep failing, the body cannot sustain.
That's right. Yeah. So in these examples, the alignment of brand culture with the company's values, business strategies, and the customer expectations has contributed to their ongoing success as a positive reputation. So these companies demonstrate the power of a strong, well-aligned brand culture. And we're doing this purely just to give you the black and white examples of when it's done poorly, how it happens and outcomes, and then when it's done well, you've got these aspirational brands. And we could have put many, many more up here, but I mean, we aren't here for the whole 24 hours plus to just sit here and talk about this. So we've got to move on. So look, guys, what we've talked about in summary is we've unlocked the hidden potential of your business by, how the branding is more than just a logo or a tagline. So hopefully you've discovered how it influences the very DNA of your company, whatever your company is doing. We've talked about the way that hopefully you've learnt the importance of the external brand image and often overlooked internal culture. So how aligning these two essential elements can lead to unprecedented success. And we've explored some strategies and implement with your own organization. So hopefully the hands-on tips have given you some ways to get some immediate transformation. Now, every week we talk about the coffee cup moment, and we've talked about it here, is understanding your brand is a pivotal in cultivating strong business culture. So aligning values empowers employees to make consistent decisions, foster transparent communication, and motivate the workforce. That alignment with brand culture attracts capable talent and contributes to a vibrant work environment. It also equips you to adapt to the changes that the customer relationships and promoters long-term sustainability, ensuring that your business has growth and success. So it's a really important thing, but for some reason, people overlook it as a thing for their brand culture. So hopefully today we've given you some insights into why it's important. And, if you're not thinking about it, hopefully you are now. So please
get you thinking.
Yeah, exactly. So what I wanted to touch on is, if you are thinking about it, but you don't know where to start, we'd love you to book a discovery session. So let us better understand your business and assess the state of your brand, your goals, and where your brand needs to be. Please visit brandyon.agency or go to the Brand Guardianship URL we've got on the screen there and book us in. We'd love to have a chat with you and talk about your business. How does it work? Well, we've got a 1, 2, 3 approach to this. Just book the call in. Let us understand what you're about. We'll then find a program, because we understand one size never fits all, and we're here to work with you on your goals and put a plan in place. By having that plan in place, we then onboard you and look at a coaching session on a regular basis where we assign either myself or Sim or one of the team members to stay focused on amplifying your brand. So if that's of interest to you, please book us in and visit the brandyon.agency, Brand Guardianship, to learn more about that. Any final thoughts, Sim?
Well, it's yes, I have just for a few seconds of my thoughts. I've been on both sides.
It's a new segment where we have a podium for you, is it? No?
Yes. Let me get my soapbox. I'll be right back. Having been in small companies and having been in a larger environment, one thing comes to the obvious observation, which is to understand the importance of fostering the culture that is going to help your business be sustainable. That's the bottom line of it all. Either by working at a local company, or working your business locally, or developing a mammoth that is going to transpose the international confines of geography, you will need to depend on people. And eventually people are led by their own values and and this becomes a system that you need to take into account, address, and make sure that you are able to build that strong culture around.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Look, guys, as always, we do thank you for joining us today. And we look forward to, okay, let's do it this way. So thank you for joining us today. We look forward to exploring ways to amplify your brand in the future. If you want to reach out to us, as we've said, please visit brandingon.agency. We would love to have a chat with you and discuss the ways that we can help you amplify your brand. Until next week, take care. Thank you for your time. See you soon.
See ya.